Hey, this is Notser, and today we're going to be talking about Luigi Sanson. He is the up-and-coming legendary Italian commander that will be a part of the 810 Italian event. But also, the other day, Wargaming teased the British heavy cruiser line. It's finally happening, guys. We've discussed the idea of alternative lines. We got the battleship line for the Americans and the Japanese. There have been rumors and whispers of the British heavy cruiser line. And finally, Wargaming has revealed that yes, indeed, they are working on it, and it is coming at some point in the early half of 2020. I can't wait to talk about both of them, discuss the passives of the legendary Italian commander, and the basic traits and playstyle that Wargaming tried to outline in this. And obviously, we don't see them in game, but what they're trying to offer is something unique that the British cruiser line or the British battleship line hasn't really offered quite yet. So, the second part of the Italian cruiser line is going to be launched at 810. 810 is going to come out around November, and it's going to consist of a collection quest. You heard me right. A collection quest. Unlike the Soviet battleship and the French DD, we will be able to have a collection quest for players to unlock this legendary commander, Luigi Sanson. Sanson has 3 unique passives. He has a one-time duration increase of consumables after a fixed number of hits to opponents from their main caliber guns. So I would imagine that this is going to be some number in and around 100. And that might mean that this particular passive will not be activatable for the battleships. It will more than likely be activatable by the DDs and the cruisers for the Italian Navy. I find it very interesting to try and use that along with the unique smoke that they have. But also, if for whatever reason the Italians get the ability to equip other unique consumables, that might be something beneficial as well. But this is definitely targeted at their super stealth smoke that they can activate, and it provides limited protection for duration. This might allow for it to exist longer, and you might notice that this player is a little bit more elusive, difficult to nail down with that added increase in consumable activation. There's also going to be a passive that provides a one-time increase to the firing range of main caliber guns, after which the destruction of an enemy occurs. Now, I don't know how many enemies. I'm going to assume it's only going to be one, and if that's the case, this will be beneficial to literally all the Italian ships, DD cruisers and battleships. All of them suffer from pretty shallow range, especially the battleships. I mean, the Julius Caesar is a pretty shallow battleship, and obviously the Roma, that's going to be a trait of their battleship line. The cruiser line, you can always benefit from more range. It lets you stay safer. You avoid taking damage that would normally be your downfall. I kind of like this one. I don't know how activatable it will be. I could totally see Italian cruiser players moving up to get an initial kill so that they could then retreat back and use that extra range to just wear out the enemy. It could be really devastating depending on how much of a percentage increase this is. At this point, we have no idea exactly how beneficial it is. And then the third and final passive, increased reload speed of their main caliber guns and torpedo reload after reaching the high caliber achievement. High caliber achievement's been in the game for a long time. I believe you have to do 30% of the enemy's total team health against 4 different targets on the enemy team. That's not something that's easily reached, but it is something that absolutely could be, especially for the Italian cruisers if they would focus their SAP attention at spreading that damage out evenly across multiple enemies so that they could then achieve this. It might be something really nice, and the Italian cruisers especially have a really long reload. The Italian DDs have a really long reload, and battleships just always have a really long reload. So this is going to be a very nice achievement that I can expect a lot of Italian players to try and work towards as well. And overall, very excited over this format to release the commander. Honestly, I wish Wargaming would go back and do a collection for the Soviet commander and the French commander. They don't deserve to be forgotten in some event or release 6 months or a year down the line, the token stuff is kind of frustrating for players anyway. I just think that the collection looks cool in your inventory. You get to see those cool icons and some historical information, but it's always there. So the player doesn't feel compelled to have to rush through this 1 month event knowing that they might never have a chance to unlock it again. The collection is just much more consumer friendly, and I like that. Now, as far as the Italian, that's all cool, but the British heavy cruiser line, you heard it right. Wargaming is going to have an alternative British heavy cruiser line. It's going to come at some point in 2020, and it's going to consist of gun calibers that are greater than 150, 152, and it goes all the way up to 234. So the first mainline ship, the Hawkins, it's going to have 7 190mm guns. It's going to have a 2x2 torpedo system, and it's going to have an excessive amount of armor, 76mm. The idea is that the British heavy cruisers will be able to actively mitigate incoming shells from any type of ship, battleship, cruiser, or destroyer, but if you were to over-angle and show too much side, you're not going to get a lot of overpin. It's going to stick in the ship, and it's going to be punished. But if you are one of those players that actively maneuvers, you will weather the storm much better than the average player. This reminds me of the Siegfried. The Siegfried has an excessive amount of belt armor that allows it to, when actively maneuver, tank damage almost equivalent to a battleship. Not quite, but almost. So you're going to tie all of this armor increase with a British heel. Might be something very cool. At Tier 6, Devonshire, this is going to have 8 203mm guns. Also, 4 torpedoes per side, and the armor belt goes up to 114mm. Surrey is the Tier 7. It also has 8 203mm guns, probably with a reload boost. Has the exact same torpedo system. I would guess that both of these ships are based off of the same sort of model or ship that existed in real life, and Wargaming is sort of making up the armor so that it fits the gameplay. The armor belt on this one is 152mm. Bedford is the Tier 8. You have 9 203mm guns. You also have the same torpedo setup. I'm going to assume that the British torpedoes will be single launchable, similar to the Minotaur and the Neptune and all those things, and it will probably have a range of probably 10 kilometers. Now, if I had the ability to have really great armor and had torpedo range that was usable, if I was close to the target, I might use those torpedoes more frequently. So I'm pretty excited that we're going to get a heavy cruiser line for the Brits that encourages a little bit more torpedo usage than maybe the cruiser line. And even the cruiser line gets a lot of use out of their torpedoes. So I'm definitely looking forward to this play. This also has 152mm of armor. I guess that it's going to be very similar. I guess these three will be very similar carbon copies with slight alterated armor values so that they make sense at their tiers. At Tier 9, we've got the Drake. It has 3x3 234mm guns, so the increase of, 31mm. It's a nice bump. The torpedoes, same setup. Armor belt, 177mm. Very intriguing. And then at Tier 10, we've got the Goliath. It has 12 234mm guns, and it has an armor belt of 203mm. So, very intrigued by this entire development. What this means is we are going to have a situation where the light cruiser line of the Brits will branch off into light cruiser and heavy cruiser, and this is going to occur probably at Tier 4 or Tier 5. There's also a premium Tier 6 cruiser named London. Look forward to trying that out as well. The initial concept, which is being tested, assumes that the ships have really good belt and deck armor. If a ship has really good belt and deck armor, actively maneuvering allows it to exist near and absorb battleship fire. It will be able to fire high explosive, which is something different for the British cruisers. Armor piercing, of course. And the damage is probably going to be on the higher end. We're thinking maybe more towards the Italian cruiser levels of alpha. So I'm going to guess that maybe the reload will be a little bit slower on average than maybe you would expect from a British, but faster than the Italians. And then at tier 8, 9, and 10, the British heavy cruisers are going to get a branded British repair party. And this is going to be pretty cool. Honestly, Wargaming, I would really like you to continuously develop the icons so that you can tell the difference between what they're benefiting from without having to highlight over and look at the very small details on it. I think it's reasonable to just have a repair party branded British so that all the British ships have this special repair party that everyone understands. So I think that's a good change. The heavy cruiser branch is going to be able to have defensive AA or a fighter. That is one slot. I like that they have all the AA on one slot. They will have a separate dedicated slot to hydroacoustic search. This is going to be similar to the British DD in that it's really more for a defensive, making sure that you don't take torpedoes, or, you know, if someone comes up over 3 or 4 minutes, you will still have them spotted. Unlike the Germans, which have the distance, but the duration is very weak for the Germans. One thing that you'll notice, you will not be able to use radar on these guys. The British heavy cruiser line will not be able to use radar at this point. And that might be something that's disappointing, but I understand. There's a hell of a lot of radar already in the game, and getting a whole nother line into it with full radar, it's going to be overwhelming. Honestly, it's probably overwhelming at this point anyway. So something to consider. But they're going for high survivability, big, powerful guns, long duration defensive hydro, and a British repair party, capable of repairing big, huge amounts of hit points that you might take. They expect these guys to be mid-range fighters. So they're going to be really comfortable, probably in and around 10 to 13 kilometers. Maybe 8 to 15. 8 to 15 in that range, I would say, is the ideal situation for the British heavy cruisers. And you know what? That sounds pretty cool. I think that's going to be a really interesting line to go down, and I especially like that it's getting an excessive amount of armor to encourage active maneuvering around battleships. I don't know how they'll actually play out, and we'll have to see about testing, but what they're offering here, this may or may not be very similar to something like what the Siegfried is trying to do for the Germans right now, and was doing probably 3 or 4 months ago. I don't know where it is at this point. But I'm really excited for the British heavy cruiser, and I'm especially excited that Wargaming is seemingly willing to do collection for their legendary commanders again. I'm really happy that Wargaming was like, okay, we're getting a lot of feedback that you guys prefer the collection. Let's do it. And I think that's the right direction to go, Wargaming. It's absolutely going to make players enjoy the game more, not less. And if they enjoy the game more, there's going to be more players. So, very happy with both of these announcements. I have no issue with it. Very curious to see how Luigi and his passive stack up. Plus, we don't know which talent for the commander skill tree will be enhanced slightly. Is it going to be, demolition expert, jack of all trades, survivability expert? We have no idea. We have no idea if there will be any enhancement, or we're just going to use just these passives. We'll have to wait and see on this guy. But Luigi is set to be released sometime mid-November. That's when the next patch, 8.10, is expected. Mid-October is 8.9. So I'm definitely on board with both of these announcements. Tell me what you think. Do you like the collection? Do you think Luigi is an appropriate Italian commander? Is he famous enough for the Italian fleet? Are his passives something that you fear or feel like they're going to be offering some unique gameplay? And what about the British heavy cruisers? I saw very little tease on some really small resolution from, I think, the tier 9 and the tier 10. They looked like British ships. They looked like British cruisers with really big guns. Spoiler alert. So expect all of this sometime in 2020 for the British heavy cruisers. The rest of 2019 is pretty full on release. Obviously, the Italian cruisers. We've got Halloween, Christmas, and they're going to do all the snowflake stuff. So very chocked full. And then plus, we're testing submarines. So Hopefully you guys are excited for all this stuff. I certainly am. Tell me what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys another time. See you guys. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, click the most recent or the most relevant uploads. You could also choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily World of Warship videos, first impression, how-to, news, and review related. My North American recruit invite is on the screen. You can take advantage of that. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.